Next is a thing called the circle of fifths. In music as in life, what goes around comes around. If you played the simple C scale, which doesn't have any sharps or flats, and then went to the fifth note of the C scale and started a new scale there at that G note, you would discover that G has one sharp. You would also discover that the sharp or black key was the seventh note of the scale. Then, if you went to the five note of that scale and started another scale, you would discover that it had the same sharp note from the G scale, and it added another sharp, which also happened to be the seventh note of that scale. And if you kept following this formula, you would discover that each new scale would add one more sharp, and each new sharp would be the seventh degree of each new scale until you ran out of sharps to add, which would put you back to C again. In other words, you would have gone full circle, so to speak. So if I named all the major scales, I'd name them in order of what they call the circle of fifths. C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp. Oops, not E sharp. There is no E sharp because there's no black key between E and F. So the next scale is F, which, if you follow the formula, you'll discover that the key of F has one black key, which is called B flat rather than A sharp. So that's all 12 of the major scales. But when you're in a flat key, you guessed it, any black key can be called flat or sharp, so there are 5 keys that could theoretically be named flat or sharp, simply because there are a total of 5 black keys on the piano. So to avoid confusion, to play the F sharp scale on the piano is to play the same notes as the G flat scale, but it can have either name. So if you play by ear rather than by reading sheet music, it won't really matter whether they call it F sharp or G flat, and it won't be necessary to memorize how many sharps are in each key. Now that we've been through the circle of fifths, don't worry, many a great musician has never even heard of the circle of fifths. Now, keep in mind that if you went through the circle of fifths backwards, you'd have the circle of fourths. And the circle of fourths is the direction that's used in songs, as we've seen earlier. So to keep from getting confused, you could think of it as fourths clockwise and fifths counterclockwise.